Hey guys, Nick here, and today we'll be getting into part 4 of What If the Governor Met Negan Remake. Last time we opened up with the governor telling Negan a fake story, as the governor often would, Negan buying it, and the governor getting a sword, and the promise that he would be able to kill Rick, Daryl, and Michonne if they ever came face to face, along with pretty much ending the Terminus arc, leaving it with a cliffhanger. And we will cover the rest of that little cliffhanger with Gareth and them, as well as more with Rick and the governor today. And now Martin, of course, being Martin, is angry at the fact that Gareth just let these people go, and nothing came of it. They literally came in, beat him to a bloody pulp, and shot off Gareth's finger, and they get to leave? And he says that they should go after them. But Gareth, for one thing, having already submitted to Rick like he did before he got killed, we'll put it in the terms that he actually does not want to engage them in further combat anymore, because it seemed that way before Rick killed him. He could have very well been a way to redeem Gareth, and says that going after them now would be a mistake. Not only because he submitted to them already, and them, but because they only really called off their proceedings with them. They didn't even know about what they did with the whole eating people thing. They just kidnapped their people. So everything else is good. They just can't mess with Rick and their people. But Martin believes that this would eventually come to bite them in the future. Who's to say that Rick and them won't come back right now and kill them all? They should be dealt with now, properly, the way that they've always dealt with people after they got this place back. And he says that if Gareth won't do anything, he will. But he doesn't get to properly finish that sentence or his motive, because he just gets straight gunned down in the process. Gareth said that he did not want to do this, just like he never wanted to do anything that him and everybody else did, including Martin himself. And unfortunately says that to show that he's serious about staying away from Rick and his people, and to show that their motives are still very clear, Martin will unfortunately be their feast tonight. And that would be pretty dark, eating pretty much Gareth's second in command. But that's where we leave Terminus for a long while, like a long while, which we will cut back to Rick and the governor and Negan for the remainder of the story for now. Anyways, Rick and them are leaving Terminus when they do still rescue Father Gabriel. And remember, Carol did not save them this time, so all the group's already together. So, nothing there. Father Gabriel gets saved, and they get led back to the church. And we have some survivors. Herschel, Mika, and Beth. 3 big survivors, at least for this time. Now, when we get to Father Gabriel's church, nothing really changes. Outside of 3 people being alive, nothing at this point in time really differentiates from the original, besides extra dialogue and stuff like that. And when we get to the food bank part, which would still happen, that doesn't change either, because the same group, I feel, would go, outside of maybe one more person outside of the 3 people I just said. But Bob still does die here, so once again, nothing changes. Bob, unfortunately, due to Father Gabriel's cowardice, gets bit here. But here's where another change comes in, outside of, the whole Terminus thing. Bob and his bite would most likely be discovered sooner, because of people like Herschel and Beth round, and the cannibals and Gareth and them not being a threat. Bob's bite, it would most likely lead him to not going out on his own, and even if he did, there are no scenes with Gareth and them at this time. So that means that Bob and his bite would be discovered sooner. He wouldn't lose his leg, and he'd probably die in the same way that he did. It'd just be a little bit different. Now, Abraham still is very persistent in the fact that he wants to leave, even though there's no immediate threat. But he wouldn't be as persistent here because there's no threat. Now, Father Gabriel, and his little secret wouldn't be enough to really make him and Rick butt heads like they did. So all in all, we get to the whole Washington thing, which would still happen, by the way, except Tara's not there. Because as I said, her and Megan joined the militia, like my What If Madison's Family joined Rick's story, and then they joined Negan, so now Negan has the tank and the governor, and all that stuff. But the Washington, D.C. thing pretty much happens per normal, except Beth is an extra witness to everything that happens. And she is one of the ones who gets to see and hear everything about Eugene lying and stuff. And speaking of Beth, there is no Grady Memorial Hospital. Now I know you guys are probably thinking, oh, Nick, why do you always skip out on the hospital arc? You do it every single story. Because there's no literal way I can fit Dawn into a story. But since Terminus and its people are still alive, who knows? I might bring them in. But that's a big might. Not going to spoil anything. All right. So the group will still leave the church here after some time because of Father Gabriel's lie, and even though there's no Beth and the hospital, I feel that the group would leave the church all in all. I have had that happen before. And we get the whole big group outside of Tara and Noah not being there. And the three survivors, as I mentioned, Herschel, Mika, and Beth, would still be around. And Tyrese, because at this point, we are at the point where Tyrese would have been dead by this point, at least an episode or two after he died. But he gets to live here, for now at least. But yeah, that is an extra survivor to add to our list. Short survivor list, but hey, this is a little bit into The Walking Dead with this what if, so what can you really say? Anyways, we get to the group at the barn because of the whole rain thing, the water on the road, and pretty much all that stuff happening per normal. Now, I don't feel like Maggie and Sasha would be sitting out by the log and everything with the music box and all that, because I feel that the only reason that they did that is because they both lost someone. Sasha lost Tyrese, and Maggie lost Beth. But since that hasn't happened here, the only real reason I could see Sasha being out there is maybe still mourning Bob, which would make sense. But I feel that Tyrese and Beth would also play in the part to maybe being out there with them if they were sitting out there. Maggie, I feel, would just be out there just to comfort Sasha, even though she hadn't lost Beth. But I still feel the interaction and them sitting out there would make for Aaron showing up pretty much the same way, except it would be a little bit different. Because honestly, with Rick and their people at this point in time, and for the pretty much point until we get to Alexandria, there's not too many changes I can think of that would really turn the story over its head. But all in all, Aaron, that whole interaction is going to happen, and that's where we leave them for this episode. Now we're going to cut to the governor and see what happened since he told Negan his story and everything, and since he got a sword. He's been doing really well, and he's held up his end of the bargain by listening to Negan. He already was, but now he's just been listening to him more, since there's more in it for him than there was originally, outside of him saving his life. But the governor's artillery consists of such, which I already touched upon in the either last episode or the one before. Governor has his old pistol and his burst assault rifle, nothing changes. But the Saviors had added him a magnum and the sword he was presented. And his friendship with the Croat, who is around, by the way, first story I really bring him in, his friendship with the Croat has really evolved dramatically. Because if you think about it, the Croat is like a darker version of Milton or Eugene. He, from what we know of him, fits that bill. And since the governor now has it in him to when he meets, if he meets Rick, Darrow, and Michonne, the governor and the Croat at a different part of the sanctuary, not really different, just a bunker, a basement pretty much, have built a torture chamber and are expanding upon it thoroughly. And we know how the governor had that little setup with the torture chamber for Michonne in the original story. And in my What If Laurie Survived, he pretty much was forced to build torture chambers. And now he is solely doing this with the Croat to prepare himself for when he does meet Rick, Daryl, and Michonne again. And the Croat is a big help for this. This is definitely be a very dramatic friendship. Then we get to the Kingdom's first appearance. Because if you remember, we were introduced to the Kingdom a lot sooner than people might assume. Because we already knew that the Saviors had come to the Kingdom, but we didn't get any knowledge of said plot until Dead City had that whole subplot with the Croat and Negan and the Croat killing the kid. But that's going to be where the next change comes in with the governor being around. Because the governor being around makes something really interesting pop up and a very interesting end question to leave off this episode. Will the Croat still kill the kid from the Kingdom? Or will the governor being around force the Croat to take a different turn? Or do you think that the governor and the Croat's friendship is so influential that they might turn on Negan together and either kill him or get sent out together? And that's where we leave things for the moment. Definitely a very interesting eye-opener for this. For the Croat especially, once again, introducing him into the story. Kind of a unique villain, even though we don't know every little twist and turn about him. And adding the governor and making it a full-on friendship with him definitely puts a little on edge for the rest of the episode. And I hope that you guys enjoy the fact that I really found a way for Terminus and Gareth and them to live. It's just going to be a while into the story. I'm talking a while before we bring them back into the fold. And I'm not going to bring up the whole Dawn and hospital thing until around the same time when I can fit both parts into the end of the story or near the end. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time.
You know, like isn't that right?